Have you ever jolted awake at 2 a.m., heart steady, room quiet, and you can't quite explain why? You glance at the clock, sigh, and maybe even blame that last glass of water before bed. But here's the truth. It's not the water's fault. In fact, what's waking you up might have very little to do with your bladder at all. We've all had that moment. The kind where you wake up in the middle of the night, eyes flicking open to the soft glow of your alarm clock, and the digits glare back at you. 2:03 a.m. The room is still, the world is quiet, yet your mind suddenly feels alert. You roll over, close your eyes, try to will yourself back to sleep, but the more you try, the more awake you feel. Maybe you sigh, grab your phone, or stare at the ceiling wondering, why does this keep happening? It's one of those oddly universal experiences, waking up in the middle of the night without a clear reason, and it always leaves you feeling puzzled, sometimes even frustrated. That's where the hook begins, because this is something nearly everyone can relate to. You're not alone in that half-conscious moment of confusion when the serenity of sleep slips away and the stillness of the night turns into restless awareness. It's the kind of frustration that builds quietly. You start to think back on your day, trying to pinpoint what you did wrong. Was it the caffeine? Was it stress? Or maybe, as so many people assume, it's because you had a glass of water before bed. That's the narrative we've been told, that if you wake up at night, it must be your body needing a bathroom break. But even when that's not the case, we keep blaming the simplest answer because it's easier to point to something external than to confront what's happening internally. This opening moment in the speech works not just to grab attention, but to draw empathy. It's an invitation into a shared struggle, one that instantly makes the listener feel seen. That instant recognition is powerful. It builds trust and curiosity. Everyone listening has lived that moment, and that's why the story resonates. The frustration of sleeplessness is something we rarely talk about openly, yet almost everyone deals with it. The introduction doesn't just name that frustration, it validates it. It lets the audience know that it's not just them, that they're not doing something wrong, and that their body isn't betraying them. From there, the tone should shift from shared experience to gentle intrigue. The key is to make people lean in, to make them want to know why. The goal isn't to shame or scare, but to guide them toward understanding. When the speech opens with that relatable image of lying awake in the dark, it sets the stage for a transformation from confusion to clarity. By starting here, the listener is emotionally invested. They want an answer because they've lived the problem. The empathy, the curiosity, and the calm reassurance all work together to build credibility and trust, preparing the audience to challenge a long-held assumption about their bodies. That's why the opening is so important. It doesn't just describe a moment of restlessness, it awakens curiosity. It's the emotional entry point that primes the audience for everything that follows, pulling them gently from frustration toward understanding. For years, we've been told that if we wake up in the middle of the night, it's because we drank too much water before bed. It sounds logical, after all. More water means more trips to the bathroom, right? But the truth is that simple explanation often misses the bigger picture. Yes, water can play a role, but it's rarely the main culprit. Blaming water is like blaming the messenger. It distracts us from what's really going on inside the body. When you wake up at 2 a.m. and automatically assume it's because you drank a glass of water before bed, you may be overlooking the deeper processes that are quietly influencing your sleep cycle. Our bodies are remarkably intelligent systems, and the urge to wake up isn't random. It's coordinated by hormones, brain activity, and even our stress response. The problem begins when we simplify the explanation and assign all the blame to hydration. This belief leads many people to restrict water intake in the evening, thinking it will solve the issue, but in reality, it often doesn't. In fact, limiting water can cause dehydration, which may further disrupt the balance of the body's internal rhythms. Instead of helping, this habit can lead to a cascade of other symptoms: headaches, fatigue, dry mouth, and even poor sleep quality, because your body needs adequate hydration to support every cellular function, including those involved in rest and recovery. When we only look at water as the cause, we miss the complex interplay between the brain and body that governs sleep. Your kidneys, for example, are more active during the day and slow down at night under the influence of a hormone called vasopressin. This hormone helps your body retain water during sleep, reducing the need to urinate if you're waking up frequently. It may not be because of the water you drank. It could be because your vasopressin levels are disrupted. This can happen when you're under chronic stress, dealing with fluctuating blood sugar levels, or experiencing hormonal imbalances that interfere with your body's natural rhythm. There's also a psychological element to consider. When we internalize the idea that water is to blame, we start to modify behavior based on fear rather than understanding. You might find yourself avoiding fluids altogether after a certain hour, but the discomfort continues. This is where frustration sets in, and it becomes easy to feel powerless over your body's patterns. But the truth is empowering. Once you stop blaming water, you open the door to a more complete understanding of your health. You begin to look at your sleep as a reflection of your entire lifestyle. What you eat, how you manage stress, how much light exposure you get, and even how emotionally restful your day has been. Dispelling the myth about water isn't just about correcting misinformation. It's about reclaiming trust in your body's signals. Your body isn't trying to sabotage your rest. It's trying to communicate something deeper, something far more insightful than a simple need to empty your bladder. By recognizing that water isn't the villain, you can finally begin to listen to what your body is really saying. Curiosity is a powerful force. It draws us in, makes us want to understand what's really happening beneath the surface of our everyday experiences. When you wake up at 2 a.m. and realize that water might not be the true reason, your mind naturally begins to wonder, then what is? That question is where real transformation begins. It's not enough to stop blaming water. You have to replace that belief with genuine curiosity about what your body is trying to communicate. There's something liberating about knowing there's more to the story, that those nighttime awakenings aren't just random inconveniences, but clues pointing toward deeper physiological or emotional imbalances. This sense of mystery can actually be motivating. It helps people move from frustration to empowerment. The human body is not just a collection of organs acting independently. It's a synchronized system influenced by countless internal and external factors. When you wake up at the same time each night, it's not a coincidence. It's often your body responding to cues, hormonal changes, stress hormones like cortisol, drops in blood sugar, or even subtle shifts in body temperature. Each of these processes is carefully timed and regulated by your circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock that governs when you sleep, wake, eat, and even repair tissues. So when that rhythm becomes disturbed, your body doesn't stay silent. It alerts you, often through those unwanted awakenings in the middle of the night. What makes this so fascinating is how interconnected everything is. Your sleep isn't just affected by what you do before bed. It's influenced by how you live during the day, your level of stress, the food you eat, the light exposure you get, and even how emotionally safe you feel all contribute to the quality of your rest. When we begin to approach sleep with curiosity rather than frustration, we start noticing patterns. Maybe you wake up around 2 a.m. after particularly stressful days, or when you skip dinner, or when you've been spending too much time on screens before bed. Each of these clues tells a story about your body's needs. This curiosity-driven mindset mirrors how good science works. It starts with a question, not an assumption. It invites you to explore rather than blame. Instead of saying, "I woke up again, I must have drunk too much water," you begin asking, what else could be happening? That shift in thought opens doors. Maybe your cortisol levels are peaking too early. Maybe your body temperature is dropping at the wrong time. Maybe your blood sugar dips during the night, sending a subtle alarm to your brain. Each possibility invites further exploration, deeper understanding, and a more compassionate relationship with your body. The beauty of curiosity is that it replaces judgment with awareness. It teaches you to listen rather than react. When you build that habit, your nighttime awakenings stop feeling like failures and start feeling like messages, small but significant opportunities to learn what your body truly needs. The tone of calm confidence and empathy is what bridges science and human experience, allowing the message to truly resonate. When people struggle with waking up at 2 a.m., they don't just want data. They want reassurance that what they're experiencing is normal, understandable, and fixable. That's why an effective delivery must sound less like a lecture and more like a compassionate conversation, one that recognizes the frustration of restless nights while gently guiding listeners toward clarity. The cadence should feel measured and soothing, mirroring the rhythm of a doctor who's not just explaining but also caring. Every word should carry both authority and warmth, helping the audience trust that they're in safe hands. Speaking with calm assurance means acknowledging that sleep issues can make people feel powerless. It's easy to spiral into worry when you can't fall back asleep asleep and your mind starts racing through thoughts of fatigue, performance, or even health. A voice of empathy counters that spiral. It validates the emotion before offering understanding. When the audience hears someone calmly say, "You're not broken and your body isn't working against you," it immediately creates relief. That tone communicates safety, which is essential when talking about something as personal and vulnerable as sleep. Confidence without compassion can sound dismissive, but compassion without knowledge can sound uncertain. The balance of both invites trust and inspires change. The cadence should feel deliberate, allowing pauses that give the listener time to reflect. A brief silence after an important point gives the audience permission to breathe, to process. When describing how the body wakes up at 2 a.m., the delivery shouldn't be rushed or clinical. It should be paced, like a story being unfolded with care. Each explanation should feel like a discovery shared between speaker and listener, not a diagnosis handed down. This rhythm mirrors the very state the audience longs for: peaceful, steady, unhurried. It models the kind of calm the listener is trying to cultivate in their own body. Empathy also requires meeting people where they are. Not everyone has the same reason for waking at 2 a.m., and not everyone needs the same solution. Recognizing that variability in tone and language shows respect for individual experience. Phrases like, "for many people," or "you might notice," signal inclusion without judgment, keeping the message accessible. The listener feels seen, not instructed. The moment the tone turns rigid or overly technical, that emotional connection breaks and the audience begins to disengage. Maintaining empathy throughout ensures that the message feels personal, not prescriptive. Ultimately, embodying a calm, confident, and empathetic tone allows the message to move beyond information. It becomes transformation. It takes the listener from a place of anxiety to a place of understanding, where science feels human and healing feels possible. It reminds them that this isn't about blame or restriction. It's about curiosity, compassion, and the realization that the body is always working toward balance. Self-reflection is where true change begins. And when it comes to understanding why you keep waking up at 2 a.m., it's one of the most important steps. So often, people search for a single external cause, something simple and immediate they can fix. But the real answer often lies in the quiet patterns of daily life, the subtle choices that shape how your body and mind function long before your head ever hits the pillow. Encouraging self-reflection means inviting people to pause and look inward, to examine not just what they do before bed, but how they live from morning to night. It's a process of connecting dots between behavior, emotion, and physiology. A process that reveals that our sleep problems are rarely isolated. They're reflections of how we manage or neglect the deeper rhythms of life. When you start looking closer, you realize that stress is often the hidden thread that ties everything together. The mind may quiet at night, but the body still remembers the tension carried throughout the day. If your brain has been racing from task to task, absorbing notifications, juggling responsibilities, and rarely finding stillness, that energy doesn't just disappear when you close your eyes, it lingers. The stress hormones remain elevated, keeping the body in a state of subtle alertness that can easily pull you out of sleep hours later. Self-reflection helps you recognize this connection, allowing you to see that what happens at 2 a.m. often started at 2 p.m. Hormones also play a significant role, and reflection helps you understand their patterns. Cortisol, melatonin, and insulin, all of them follow daily cycles influenced by your habits. If you're eating heavy meals late, spending long hours under artificial light, or not moving your body enough, those hormones lose their rhythm. Reflecting on how you eat, move, and unwind can reveal how your choices affect those internal signals. It's not about perfection or guilt. It's about awareness. The moment you see the pattern, you gain the ability to adjust it. Lifestyle choices, even the small ones, accumulate and influence sleep quality more than we realize. The timing of caffeine, the hours spent scrolling on screens, the emotional residue from conversations, all of it adds up. Reflection helps transform these unnoticed habits into insights. Instead of feeling like sleep is something that happens to you, it becomes something you participate in. You start to see sleep not as a nightly event, but as the final chapter in a story you've been writing all day. That awareness empowers you to make small, meaningful changes that ripple into deeper rest. The beauty of self-reflection lies in its gentleness. It doesn't demand that you overhaul your life overnight. It simply asks that you pay attention. The goal isn't to find fault, but to find connection, to recognize that your body's nighttime restlessness is simply a conversation, a gentle reminder to bring your waking life into better balance. When you finally uncover the real reason you're waking up at 2 a.m., something powerful happens. You shift from frustration to empowerment. For so long, that moment of wakefulness might have felt like a mystery you couldn't solve, an interruption you just had to accept. But once you start understanding the deeper signals your body is sending, you realize that those awakenings are not random or meaningless. They are your body's way of asking for balance, for attention, for care. That realization changes everything. It transforms the way you see sleep, the way you treat your body, and ultimately the way you live. Understanding gives you control, not control in the sense of forcing sleep, but in knowing how to create the conditions that allow it to come naturally. Empowerment through knowledge begins with awareness. You start to recognize that your body operates on patterns, your circadian rhythm, your hormonal cycles, your emotional fluctuations. And when any of those are disrupted, your body responds. Instead of blaming yourself or some small external factor, you begin to appreciate how intelligent that response truly is. It's your body protecting you, alerting you, guiding you towards something that needs to be addressed. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's blood sugar, maybe it's your environment. But once you identify it, you can take action. That's where empowerment lives. In the intersection between understanding and choice, when people reach that point of insight, their relationship with rest changes. Sleep stops being a nightly struggle and becomes part of a larger picture of well-being. They start setting better boundaries with technology, allowing their evenings to wind down rather than blur into the overstimulation of constant screens. They begin eating in ways that stabilize energy and hormones throughout the day. They approach bedtime with intention, creating routines that cue the body for rest. These aren't dramatic changes, but they stem from a deeper respect for what the body has been communicating all along. Every choice becomes an act of partnership with your own physiology. The beauty of discovering the true cause behind your 2 a.m. awakenings is that it connects you more deeply to yourself. You start to notice not only when you're tired, but why. You become aware of how your emotions, diet, and stress patterns influence the quality of your sleep. This awareness doesn't create pressure, it creates freedom. Because when you understand what's happening, you no longer feel helpless in the dark. You have tools, patterns, and insights that help you restore balance. You stop fighting your body and start working with it. The deeper message is that your body has always been on your side. Those 2 a.m. wake-ups were never just interruptions. They were invitations to slow down, to realign, to nurture the parts of your life that have drifted out of sync. Once you understand and respond to that call, rest comes easier, not just at night, but in every part of your life.